Boys, I won't even lie to you. I'm super tired right now. It's late. It's like pretty late, 9 p.m., past 9 p.m. on a Saturday night. And if you guys follow me on Instagram, you know that I get up at 5:30 in the morning and I post a story before 6 a.m. At Narrowway Man if you don't follow me there. And it's a Saturday night, right? Like, starting to get warmer out. People are out having a good time, hanging out, watching movies, you know, eating out to eat, hanging out with friends, and I'm just exhausted. And I wanted to make this video for you guys tonight just to be real with like how I motivate myself. You know, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a men's coach, and so that means I'm fulfilling my product, right? Like I have to do the work for my clients, which is why I started this, is so I could do that work. And I also have to find my own leads, close my own sales, the whole nine. And the only people who talk about how easy it is to do that are trying to sell you a course on how to do that. So pay attention. The only people who talk about how easy it is to do what I do are selling you a course on how to do what I do. But the rest of us are just going to be honest. I can just be honest with you. It's very hard. And I have no complaints. And this is the life I want. But it's tough. And you may not do what I'm doing now. But if you want an epic life, if you want to live to be the type of man that reaches the potential that God has given you, then you're going to have nights like tonight where you're making a video that is going to get 50 views for 188 subscribers, I think, which is awesome. And you're not doing it because you think you're going to make a bunch of money, but because you love the game. And it's been a long day. It's been a good day. I, had my usual 5:30 wake up. I grabbed a little coffee, which I don't normally do. I do like 1 to 2 caffeine servings a week is where I'm getting to now. Got some breakfast, prepared for a course that I did this morning at 10 a.m., a live course, and then hit the gym with a buddy, hit a solid workout, then had coffee with a friend that just needs some help and some mentorship right now. And then I hit my grocery shopping, and then back to work with client stuff this evening. And I've pretty much just been doing that the whole evening, making content, client work, all that. And I'm just super exhausted. I still have stuff to do. And it's the weekend, like this is the silent hustle, right? The cool thing about this video is I'm just going to be real with y'all, and it's going to matter because I'm being real in the dark, like this is a small channel and I don't have a ton of viewers, but you guys that are viewing are going to get to see the reality of it, while it's still what it is now. And so the video I'm making tonight, what we're talking about tonight, is just simply one of my biggest motivators. This is how I motivate myself in the darkest times, in the times where I'm exhausted and I don't want to do anything. And man, I know this is a ramble. I really appreciate you guys watching. But this means a lot to me. So we're going to be whipping out the old tattered up New King James. This is what my parents gave me back in 2008, and there's other translations that have advantages over this, but hey, these are my worn pages. This is what I'm used to pulling from, so that's what I'm going to pull from tonight. And we're going to be looking at Hebrews 11. So this is kind of a Bible study in a sense, but you're going to see where it's going. Hebrews 11, man. Hebrews 11 and 12 is what we're going to be looking at. But this is how I motivate myself. And this is how we are actually called to be motivated biblically. Okay? If you want biblical motivation, then listen up, because this is what it is. All right, so Hebrews chapter 11, starting in verse 1. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So just right there, you got to understand, you only need faith when you don't have evidence. You don't need faith when you have evidence. If you have evidence, then you already are certain, you already know that the thing that you want or the thing that you're believing in is going to come to pass because you have evidence. That's why this opens up by saying faith is the evidence of things not seen. Whenever you don't see it, faith is the evidence for it. And it says at first, faith is the substance of things hoped for. The things that you hope for, but you don't have evidence for, that's where faith comes in, okay? So it's in times like these, times like tonight, where you're not motivated and you're very tired, that faith has to be that substance and that evidence that keeps you going. Moving to verse 2. For by it, faith, the elders obtained a good testimony. For by faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God, so that the things which are seen were not made of things which are visible. Which is kind of a side note, but he's saying, by faith we understand that everything we see came from things that are not visible. AKA, matter did not create itself. God spoke the world into existence. The word of God framed the world. Beautiful. Verse 4. By faith Abel offered to God a more excellent sacrifice than Cain, through which he obtained witness that he was righteous, God testifying of his gifts, and through it, he being dead, still speaks. Epic. Even in death, Abel's sacrifice still speaks. What a legacy. By faith, verse 5, Enoch was taken away, so that he did not see death, and was not found because God had taken him. For before he was taken, he had this testimony, that he pleased God. How cool is that? That your whole life's testimony is that you pleased God, right? So cool. So we got Abel, we got Enoch. And then in verse 6, there's a little disclaimer. Without faith, it is impossible to please God. For he who comes to God must believe that he is, or that he exists, and that he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. So you have to have faith. Faith that God exists, and faith that God will reward those who seek him. Apparently, Enoch had that, because his testimony was that he pleased God. By faith, Noah, being divinely warned of things not yet seen, right? It's a common theme, right? There's things that are not seen, we don't have evidence for, but that's where faith comes in. And for Noah, obviously that was the flood. So verse 7, by faith Noah, being divinely warned of things not yet seen, moved with godly fear, prepared an ark for the saving of his household, by which he condemned the world, because he had faith and they didn't. And he became an heir of the righteousness which is according to faith. So you got Abel, Enoch, Noah. Next up, Abraham, verse 8. By faith Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to the place which he would receive as an inheritance. And he went out, not knowing where he was going. He didn't know, but he did have faith. And by faith he dwelt in the land of promise, as in a foreign country, dwelling in tents with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. For he waited for the city which has foundations, whose builder and maker is God. By faith Sarah, his wife, herself also received strength to conceive seed, and she bore a child when she was past the age. So she was way past childbearing years. Because she judged him faithful who had promised. Therefore, from one man, and him as good as dead, speaking of his sexual impotence, therefore from one man, and him as good as dead, were born as many as the stars in the sky in multitude, innumerable as the sand which is by the seashore. Now, we just talked about Abel, Enoch, Noah, Abraham, and Sarah. Patriarchs, matriarchs of our faith. Verse 13 says, these all died in faith, not having received the promises, but having seen them afar off, were assured of them, embraced them, and confessed that they were strangers and pilgrims on the earth. For those who say such things declare plainly that they seek a homeland. And truly, if they had called to mind that country from which they had come out, they would have had opportunity to return. But now they desire a better, that is, a heavenly country. Therefore God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them. There's a lot there, but in short, all these people died without seeing the object of their faith come to pass within their lifetimes. They all died without seeing it all happen. And at any point, they could have turned back. But they kept pressing on because they were desiring a heavenly country. And God prepared it for them because of their faith. By faith, Abraham, when he was tested, offered up Isaac. And he who had received the promises offered up his only begotten son. Because God promised Abraham a son in his old age, and then when he got it, God tested him and asked him to sacrifice his own son. And Abraham, although he didn't have to sacrifice his son, he did come up to that point where he was willing to. Of whom it was said, in Isaac your seed shall be called, concluding that God was able to raise him up even from the dead, from which he also received him in a figurative sense. By faith, Isaac, Abraham's son, blessed Jacob and Esau concerning things to come. By faith, Jacob, when he was dying, blessed each of the sons of Joseph and worshipped, leaning on the top of his staff. By faith, Joseph, when he was dying, made mention of the departure of the children of Israel and gave instructions concerning his bones. What does that mean? It means that when Joseph, who was the son of Jacob, who was the son of Isaac, who was the son of Abraham, this whole line of faith, when Joseph was dying, the children of Israel were in Egypt, and Joseph knew that they would return to a homeland and leave Egypt. And so he told the people around him as he was dying, hey, one day we're going to go back. And when we do, take my bones. That's faith. By faith, Moses, who ended up helping free the people of Israel from Egypt, when he was born, was hidden 3 months by his parents because they saw he was a beautiful child, and they were not afraid of the king's command, which was to kill all of the newborn boys. By faith, Moses, when he became of age, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the passing pleasures of sin, esteeming the reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasures in Egypt, for he looked to the reward. So you have all these people that are looking ahead, looking ahead, looking ahead. Even Moses, who was actually adopted by the Pharaoh's daughter and raised in the wealth of the Egyptian palace, he refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. Why? Because he knew his place. He knew that God had called him to suffer the affliction with his own people, rather to enjoy the passing pleasures of sin, knowing that there was a reward coming for him. All right, verse 27. For those of you who's still watching, I love you. Lock in. Verse 27. By faith he forsook Egypt, not fearing the wrath of the king, for he endured as seeing him who is invisible. Right? The unseen, the invisible. You have to have faith. By faith he kept the Passover and the sprinkling of blood, lest he who destroyed the firstborn should touch them. You got to know about the plagues to know about that one. By faith they passed through the Red Sea as by dry land, whereas the Egyptians, attempting to do so, were drowned. Imagine that. The sea opens up in front of you, and you're just supposed to walk through it. You have no clue how or why it opened up. You just have to trust that you're supposed to walk through, and they did. And it goes on. Verse 30, by faith the walls of Jericho fell down after they were encircled for 7 days. They walked around a city for 7 days, and then the walls fell down. That takes faith. It takes faith to walk day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and be ridiculed and look like idiots. but they did it by faith. By faith, the harlot Rahab, who was within Jericho, did not perish with those who did not believe when she had received the spies with peace. And then, instead of going into a lot of detail, the author kind of zooms out in verse 32. He says, "And what more shall I say? For the time would fail me to tell of Gideon and Barak and of Samson and Jephthah, also of David and Samuel and the prophets, who through faith subdued kingdoms, worked righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, out of weakness were made strong, became valiant in battle, turned to flight the armies of aliens. Women received their dead raised to life again. Others were tortured, not accepting deliverance, that they might obtain a better resurrection." So catch it. Not everyone lived. Not everyone saw victory. Some were tortured, not accepting deliverance. They said, "No, torture me. I don't want deliverance. I want to obtain eternal life." Still others had trials of mockings and scourgings, yes, and of chains and imprisonment. They were stoned. They were sawn in two. They were tempted, were slain with the sword. They wandered about in sheepskins and goatskins, being destitute, afflicted, tormented, of whom the world was not worthy. Doing these in one take, that's a commitment. Of whom the world was not worthy. They wandered in deserts and mountains, in dens and in caves of the earth. And all of these, having obtained a good testimony through faith, they still did not receive the promise. God having provided something better for us, that they should not be made perfect apart from us. All right, did you catch all that? Are you with me? You still with me? Chapter 12. Therefore, we also, just like them, you and me, we also, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us, you and me, lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. Looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who, for the joy that was set before him, endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Guys, it's our turn. We're up. It is our race to run. It is our war to wage. It is our battle to fight. And whenever you're feeling tired, whenever you've lost your motivation, which happens sometimes, it does. I want you to remember all of chapter 11. And then when you get to chapter 12, remember that it's our turn and that we also are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses. Who do you think is in the cloud? Who do you think we're surrounded by? Who do you think is sitting in the bleachers of heaven, watching you, watching me run our race? Chapter 11 tells us it's Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, David, Moses, Enoch, and so many more. Samson, Jephthah, the prophets, Rahab. These men and women that have gone before us surround us now in a great cloud of witnesses. What are witnesses? They're testifying. Their works testify of their faith, and they're watching. They're witnessing you and me run our race now. So therefore, let's not drop the baton. Take hold of it. And let us lay aside every weight, everything that slows you down, and the sin which so easily ensnares us. And let's run. It's our turn, boys. Let's run this race with endurance. And just like all of those who came before us are looking ahead, we're looking ahead too. As the saints who have gone before us are cheering us on, we, chapter 12, verse 2, are looking unto Jesus, the author and the perfecter of our faith. Because he was looking forward to something too. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, despising the shame. And he won his race, and he is sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. So when you're feeling down, when you're feeling weak, when you're feeling tired, when you feel like you can't keep going, when you don't see the evidence of what you're hoping for, when your dreams have no substance, when you feel like God is far away, you can't see him moving in your life, when things seem dark, I want you to remember the cloud. Remember the cloud of witnesses that surrounds you. Remember that they're watching and cheering. And they want you to take that baton and finish the race strong. And then as you hear their cheers surrounding you in the cloud, look unto Jesus. He's our prize. He's where we're running. Y'all take care.